Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 34th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 34, UA Sports Festival Award Ceremony. Kaizome sat back as he watched the UA Sports Festival, focusing mostly on Izumi. He was in the main living room of the rehab dorm, sitting with the rest of the kids. Due to not being allowed to take part, they were left with watching it from their dorm. He didn't interact with the other rehab kids, preferring to keep his distance from them. Most of them were young offenders with only minor crimes. But there were a few who were like him, killers. Mostly self-defense that ended up leading them down a dark path, but killers nonetheless. He still didn't believe that he could be rehabilitated himself. His mission was still incomplete. There were still plenty of fakes out there in need of culling. But there wasn't much he could do whilst he was in this state. A younger body may seem advantageous, but against most pros, his older body would be preferable. It was stronger and more flexible. All he could do was wait and see what Nizu had in store for him, and wait out this rehab. Also, the other villain rehab kids all thought he was Stain's younger brother. No idea where they got that idea from. Maybe he shouldn't have said that he was Stain, and had just been hit by a quirk that made him younger. Nizu never said that he had to keep that little thing secret. Sadly, no one other than Izumi believed him. So, Stain's younger brother it was then. Anyway, he was focusing mostly on Izumi because she had put a large target on her back the last time they spoke. Her desire to be a hero who would save everyone is a bold claim, especially for a first-year hero course student. The fact she called herself the unstoppable hero only made her claim even more preposterous. A part of him wanted to watch her fail. To see her crash and burn like the future fake she was. Because after a claim like that, what else could she be? But she proved him wrong. Because she won the festival. Normally he would have dismissed it. Winning the sports wasn't anything fancy. It just marked you out as even more of a fake. But Izumi, her victory was different. It felt different. He could not tell why it felt different, only that it did. Her speech at the beginning, whilst it wasn't the best, was slightly odd due to holding a wolf plush, and the threat of kicking someone to the moon was an odd choice. Kind of a Mirko response there. But, despite its flaws, it felt more real, unlike the previous student pledges that just felt empty or self-centered. Hers felt real. She wasn't in the clear just yet, but she was a lot better than most of the upcoming heroes. Maybe, just maybe, she might be able to achieve what she says she's setting out to achieve. If anyone has a chance of replacing All Might, or at least, become a new symbol for a new era, then it was her. But until that day came, he would watch, and wait, to see just what kind of hero she really becomes. Because not everyone who sets out to become a hero remains the same. And oh how he knows what that's like. Izumi was vibrating with excitement as she stood atop the first-place podium. Durandal sitting beside her. Never before in her wildest dreams did she ever think she would ever stand here, atop the first-place podium having just won the sports festival. She could still hardly believe it. With her was Achiko, standing on the second-place podium, and Momo and Vine, whose name she just found out was Ibra, standing on the third-place podium. You two seem happy, Momo remarked as she turned to look at them. I know you two got first and second place, but you seem a lot happier than I would expect. Both Izumi and Achiko shared a quick glance and a light blush. Well, I may have won more than just the gold, Izumi said nervously, her blush slowly getting brighter. I'm happy for you too, Momo said with a bright smile, glad that her friends had gotten together. I hope you two are happy together. I'll give them some time to get comfortable before asking about the possibility of a polyamorous relationship. I don't want them to feel rushed or overwhelmed. Young love can be so fragile, she thought. Whilst she was happy for them, she hoped that this doesn't affect the snuggle squad too much. She'd miss snuggling with those two adorable cuties. Izumi and Achiko shared a quick smile. Personally, they would have preferred to have been standing on the same podium so that they could be closer to each other, but they couldn't. But she didn't mind much. Once they were back at the dorm, they were going to be spending a lot of time together. She had 10 years of positive affection to catch up on, and she wasn't going to miss a second of it.
Galastram, Ibara said calmly.
Please, call me Achiko. Achiko said with a smile. We're not heroes yet, nor are we on the clock. Plus there are no cameras down here, so we're safe to use our real names. Well then, Achiko Ibara continued, I couldn't help but notice before the match began your lips moved.
Were you making a silent prayer? Prayer? Izumi thought, but Achiko's not Shinto, or Buddhist, or even religious in general.
Achiko nervously rubbed the back of her head. You could say that, she said. It's complicated, okay?
Okay, never mind, Achiko is religious, Izumi thought with a shrug. But then, if she's not Shinto, Buddhist or Christian, then what is she? Thoughts for another day, it's not important. You're Jedi, aren't you? Durandal asked calmly. What? Achiko gasped, looking surprised. Jedi, seriously? You think I'm a follower of a fictional religion?
Well, you did say it's complicated, Durandal said, plus your quirk allows you to mimic some force abilities. Achiko looked at the robot with an almost dumbfounded look on her face. If you're referring to my ability to move things around like telekinesis, I can only do that to objects that I use my quirk on and remove their gravity.
Plus I can't do Jedi mind tricks or stuff like that.
Also no, I am not a Jedi. I know there are people out there who do follow their teachings, but I am not one of them.
Besides, I'm not exactly what you would call Jedi material.
If anything, I'm more leaning towards the Sith and the Empire.
Izumi said, sounding surprised. That was surprising. Achiko didn't look like the kind of girl who would like the bad guys. What, if you had a lightsaber, what color would you want it to be? Achiko asked. Izumi lowered her head in defeat. Red, she said.
As much as she would like a green one to match her hair, deep down she would prefer a red one.
They were just so much cooler. So, if you two had lightsabers, you'd prefer to have red ones,
Momo said. Well, can't deny that I would like a red one as well, maybe a double-sided one like Maul's.
I'm very good with staffs after all. Achiko nodded. Yep. But I'd probably use one that's similar to the one Kylo Ren used.
Say what you want about the sequels, because yes, they are terrible, but at least they made a lightsaber with a proper sword guard to protect the hand. I'll give you that one, Momo said with a frown, having not enjoyed the Disney sequels at all. Still, I wouldn't take Achiko for an Empire supporter. The great Machi Empire will conquer all, Achiko said with a sinister smirk. Achiko, Izumi said, don't make me get Himiko, we will attack you with plushies again and you will lose. That was not a loss, it was a tactical retreat, Achiko retorted with a pout. I was caught off guard by the number of plushies she had brought.
Next time I will be prepared for them. How did we get from religion to Achiko wanting to conquer the planet with an army of Machi? Ibara asked.
Welcome to the madness that is 1A, Durandal replied as the dais was raised, revealing them to the crowd, who were cheering loudly.
And here are the winners of UA's first-year sports festival.
Midnight announced loudly to the masses, and, who better to present the medals to our winners than Dash, she said before All Might landed right next to her, causing her to stumble.
I am here. With the medals.
All Might said, holding the 4 medals. Midnight shot All Might an annoyed glare. The 4 girls on the podium holding back their laughter. We'll work on your timing later, she said, making sure her microphone was off as she spoke to him. She then turned it back on and carried on from where she left off, the number 1 hero, All Might. All Might gave the crowd a few moments to get their excitement out of their systems before he walked over to the 3rd place podium with the 2 girls standing on it, placing the first medal around Momo's neck. Young Creati, you have displayed a creative use of your quirk today.
I am most impressed.
Thank you, All Might, Momo said with a smile, but I do believe that there are still things I need to improve upon.
Self-improvement is an important part of being a hero.
All Might said, we are always seeking to improve ourselves, just like everyone else. He then turned to Ibara and placed a medal around her neck. Young Vine, you have shown remarkable skill with your quirk, you performed admirably today.
Ibara nodded. Thank you. But I must admit that I did not enjoy hurting my fellow classmates.
All Might gave her a gentle smile. I don't enjoy hurting others either. Unfortunately, sometimes we have no choice but to fight the villains we face.
But, always remember, diplomacy is always an option.
My best villain takedowns have been when there's been no fighting at all and the villains surrender without a fight.
You have done well to show. Ibera smiled slightly, happy to have gotten as far as she did with the minimum amount of violence.
All Might then moved on to the second place podium, placing a medal around Ochiko's neck. Young Galistram, you have shown impressive determination during the festival.
I am quite proud of you. Ochiko smiled, but looked nervous. Thanks. But I feel like I could have done better. We all feel at times that we could have done things better.
All Might said, but, like I said to Crusade, we heroes are always improving ourselves.
Take this as a learning experience and use it to do better next time.
All Might then moved to the last podium, his smile becoming more gentle. Young Yusako. You have grown so much since you first arrived here at UA. He said as he put the last medal around Izumi's neck, tears of happiness pooling around the girl's eyes and even further still from when I first met you. You have made me proud. Izumi smiled, her tears falling free. Thank you All Might, I just never expected to ever get here in the first place.
She muttered quickly.
Breath Izumi, breathe, All Might said, resting a hand on the girl's shoulder. You have come far to get here.
But don't let this get to your head.
You still have much to learn, but I am sure that you will become a fantastic hero. Izumi nodded frantically, tears still falling from her eyes.
She was so happy to be here. Should have brought an umbrella, Durandal remarked.
All Might then turned to face the crowd and was about to speak before Midnight tapped his leg. All Might, the R18 hero whispered, they're expecting a plus ultra from you.
Oh really?
All Might said, sounding disappointed, I was going to thank everyone for their hard work.
Just say plus ultra, Midnight said, sounding annoyed. Not wanting the number one hero making an ass of himself and embarrassing himself on live TV.
All Might nodded before addressing the crowd, making one last short speech before capping off with one last plus ultra, which the crowd preempted. He sweat dropped, realizing just how close he had come to embarrassing himself. Izumi meanwhile wasn't paying attention, holding the first place medal in her hand and vibrating with glee, still finding it hard to believe that she had managed to win the sports festival. This was the happiest day of her life. Yes, getting one for all was also great, but that day also involved her breaking her arm and legs, which thankfully didn't happen today.
Nothing could bring this day down. Nothing. A pair of dark, unblinking black eyes watched the TV in front of them intensively, watching the fight between Yusako and Galistram.
They were both fakes in the making, all of them were.
Glory hounds who only cared about making money, just like all the heroes out there already. Heroes that needed culling.
With Stain now missing, since there hadn't been a single news report about him for about a month, someone had to take up the hero killer's mantle. The eyes looked down at a blade laying on the floor, a blade drenched in blood. The Scion of Blood smiled, with Stain gone, he and his followers will become the next hero killers. They will cull the world of heroes until there are none left to pollute the world with. And he already knew who he'd start with. Yusako will be among the first the Children of Blood will kill, alongside all those from Class 1A. But he will need help to achieve this. His followers were many but scattered and weak. It was challenging to gather them all in one place without some of them getting a bit too fanatical and attacking the first hero they see, which always ends up in them getting arrested.
Far too few of them were inexperienced and he needed to train them to make them stronger.
He could train them to make them stronger, but he was just one man, he couldn't be everywhere. He had trusted advisors all over the country, but they too were limited in their ability to control and train his many followers. And those who slip through the cracks only end up arrested, failing to kill the hero they targeted, with good reason. An inexperienced killer is nothing to a highly trained pro hero, especially if that hero survived the Avalon War.
Fakes as they may be, Avalon veterans were a cut above the rest.
It baffled him why Stain never targeted those heroes who fought and survived the war. They were among the worst of the fakes, using the fame they gathered from the war to better themselves, but they were still veterans of a very bloody war.
Killing them would not be easy. Good thing then, that he knew of some people who could help with that.
The League of Villains seemed interesting. They did manage to infiltrate the USJ and show those fakes in the making what was waiting for them.
Yes, they will do nicely.
They could help him achieve his goal, all he needed to do was contact them.
Later that day, the students of 1A were making their way back to their dorm after being dismissed by their homeroom teacher. Almost all of them were exhausted by the day's events, but were all happy. They all felt that they had done well during the festival, and all of them congratulated Izumi, Achiko and Momo for getting to the podium, with a few of them promising to do better next year. Izumi and Achiko had been keeping close to each other since the award ceremony, the former not wanting to be away from the latter for long. The two walked back to the dorm holding the other's hand, their fingers interlocked. Izumi, whilst not wanting to keep their relationship a secret, didn't want to blab it out. So the two had opted to tell the others about their relationship later and hoped that no one else would notice in the meantime. Oh, how wrong she was. Hisashi had joined up with them, congratulating his daughter on winning the sports festival. He was just so happy that his little bean sprout had won the festival. He couldn't have been more proud of her. And yes, he had noticed. He wasn't the only one to notice the change in Izumi and Achiko's behavior. Most of the class had as well, especially the members of the Snuggle Squad and Izumi's pre-UA friends Hitoshi and Nito. The two boys shared a quick fist bump when they realized their friend had finally gotten together with Achiko, knowing how badly she had it for the girl. Himiko was grinning, alongside Mina and Toru. The three already had a good idea of what was going on between the two and were waiting for it to go public before trying to gather any juicy gossip. Momo, who already knew the details, was just smiling. As would Tsu if she could, but her quirk made expressing herself difficult. But if she could, she would have been smiling, or smirking, just as Kikaku. And Mei was completely oblivious to what was going on. And then there was Minoru, who was at the back of the group walking slower than usual. The sports festival had been interesting, to say the least. But not interesting in the way the short boy would have liked. The cheerleader incident troubled him greatly. Despite liking the idea of seeing the girls wearing cheerleader outfits, he wasn't involved in the plan at all. He didn't even know that they were being tricked into wearing them until Midnight said so. But it hurt when Tsuyu accused him of being part of that plan. He had followed Tsuyu, Achiko and Izumi to listen in on them, and what he heard was troubling. Hearing from Tsuyu and Achiko that none of the girls liked him hurt. Like, really hurt. He thought his comments were harmless, that's all. But, to hear that Tsuyu did not like comments about her body, something he had done excessively during the second round, made him rethink things. He liked to say that he had standards. He wouldn't say anything perverted about a married woman like their homeroom teacher, and he'd like to say that he had more standards than that. But, after hearing and watching Tsuyu's breakdown, it made him think, what other standards did he have? He spent most of the recreational games thinking it over, seeing what other standards he has. And, unfortunately, he didn't have any more. And the one he does have kind of falls flat since he's still willing to enjoy himself, in private, to pictures of female heroes like Ms. Joke and Yuwabmi, who are both married. Not really helping his case there. With the realization that his harmless fun wasn't so harmless, he became depressed. When he first wanted to become a hero, one of his main drives was to get himself a harem because girls liked heroes. But, if his actions were making his female classmates uncomfortable, then the chances are that he'll make other women uncomfortable as well. Not a good thing when you want a harem of hot women. And then he forfeited the first match against Izumi. At the time he thought it was for the best. He was still thinking things over and mentally was not focused on the fight, so he thought that it would be for the best if he forfeited, giving him some more time to think things over. But now that he's had time to think about it, all he did was prove Tsuyu right, that he was useless. That he was someone who, at the first sign of trouble, would panic and not do anything. Why did he do that? He disappointed everyone today. The match hadn't even started and he forfeited it, not even giving her a satisfying win. If he wanted to become a hero with a harem, then he was going to have to change, because as he was now, he wasn't going to attract anyone. But, he wasn't sure how to change. Oh well, he could ask Hound Dog for help. For now, he'll keep his distance from the girls. The last thing they need is for him to make them any more uncomfortable. I would like to congratulate everyone on a successful first sports festival. Tenya said as the dorms came into view. We have done well to represent UA as students of this fine establishment.
Well, as great as a bunch of first years can do for that matter, Denki said, rubbing his prosthetic eye.
You okay? Kyoka asked, sounding concerned. A bit, yeah, Denki said. My eye has been itching ever since the first round. The entire minefield exploding in our faces didn't do it any good. I'll ask Recovery Girl about it tomorrow. It's probably just something that got dislodged or something.
Well, at least that's all that happened to you, Kyoka said. My hearing is still fucked from that explosion. It's not as bad as it was during the second round, but might want to pay a visit to Recovery Girl tomorrow as well, just in case.
I wonder what caused the entire field to explode like that. May wondered. I've seen those mines explode before, even worked on a few of them as well.
They should not have had that much individual explosive potential. It was probably a quirk that caused it, Izumi said. Probably one that can remotely detonate explosives and can make those explosions stronger. It couldn't have been Shiharu's. At the time, she was still crossing the big pit, she said with a shudder, still grateful for Ochako carrying her over that obstacle.
You're probably right, Hitoshi said before he turned towards Himiko. Didn't you say that the three-pointer missile racks in your testing area kept exploding on their own? Himiko nodded. Yep.
I don't think there was a single three-pointer in our area that didn't have its missile rack explode. At the time I thought it was a fault on UA's part since they built the things. But after the entire minefield exploded in our faces, yeah, that was definitely a quirk. I'm just glad that we weren't in the minefield at the time, Toru said with a shudder. I hope the teachers have a word with whoever caused those mines to blow up on us, Inasa said with a hateful look in his eyes. It's completely unheroic. Even if we were up against each other. I have to agree with you on that one, Izumi said as they approached the door to the dorm. Even if this was a sporting event, you can't just blow up an entire minefield like that. Someone could have gotten seriously hurt if they had been inside the field at the time. But now we know someone in our year can do that, meaning we can be better prepared for it next year, she said as they walked inside. Big sister, Eri said as she bolted towards them like a missile and hugged Izumi. We watched you compete. You were so cool. Izumi smiled as she returned Eri's hug, patting the young girl on the head. She wasn't smiling yet, not genuinely. But one day she will see her smile. Thank you, Eri, Izumi said with a smile. Where's Inko? Eri broke off the hug and stepped back. She's resting on the sofa, recovering from dehydration. She cried a lot. I'll go get her some water, Hisashi said as he made his way towards the kitchen. The rest of the class either headed to their rooms to get changed or went to the kitchen to raid the fridge. Izumi picked up Eri and made her way towards the living room, where her mother was laying on the sofa surrounded by towels and tissues. Guess some of the things she did during the festival stressed her out, and winning the entire thing probably caused her to cry even more. Kimoto and Teshima sitting on one of the other sofas and nibbling on some fruit, several open umbrellas around them. Hey, you too. Mei said as she zipped over and sat in between her two younger siblings. What did you think? You were so cool. Kimoto said with a smile whilst Teshima continued to nibble on some fruit. Whilst Mei was basking in the praise coming from one of her siblings, Izumi meanwhile was checking on her mother, who looked like she had passed out. Mom? Izumi asked as she poked her mother. Inko immediately bolted upright. Izumi, my little baby. She wailed as she hugged her daughter, Eri getting caught up in the middle of it. I'm so proud of you. Too tight, Eri said as she was squeezed. Izumi quickly realized what was happening and broke out of her mother's hug. Mom, you're frightening Eri. Sorry, Inko said with a slight frown, but I can't stress enough how proud of you I am. Seeing you compete in the festival, just like you said you wanted to, I just didn't expect you to win. Neither did I, Izumi said as she put Eri down. Honestly, I never expected to get that far, let alone during my first ever sports festival. Inko smiled, but there was worry hidden behind that smile. I'm glad you managed to win. But, did you have to be so reckless though? There were times when I felt I was going to have a heart attack. I know being a hero is a dangerous career, but watching you put yourself into so many dangerous situations, I can't help but worry about you, especially after Dash. Izumi put a hand on her mother's shoulder and gave her a gentle squeeze. It's okay. I know the USJ was bad,
but I'm sure that it'll be a one-off. I highly doubt we'll have to face off against the League or Avalon again, she said, really hoping that she was right. One massive and bloody villain attack was enough for her. Let's just hope you're right about that, Hisashi said as he walked over with a jug of water. Achiko walked over as well and stood beside Izumi, slowly grasping the other girl's hand and interlocking their fingers. Well, UA has a lot of people looking for both groups, so I doubt they'll last long, Durandal said, especially the Avalon morons. Now that the world knows Argonaut is here, the WHA is going to be gunning for him. With any luck, they'll catch him within a few months. If they bring the army to help, that is. Well, I hope you're right and don't have to face him again, Inko said as she took a glass from Hisashi and took a sip. I'm stressed enough as it is. Becoming a hero is just so dangerous, and I can't help but worry about you. You've already been attacked by villains once. I don't know how I would handle it if you were attacked again. You are my only child, Izumi. I don't want to lose you. Don't worry, Miss Inko, Achiko said with a smile. Your daughter is in safe hands, she said, Izumi flashing her a bright smile. A smile that did not go unnoticed by the girl's mother. Inko looked between the two girls with a worried expression, which slowly shifted into a smile. She then noticed that Izumi was holding Achiko's hand. She didn't think much of it at first, as it is a rather common thing in Japan for girls to hold the hands of close friends. She did that all the time with Mitsuki when they were young, after all. But she didn't remember ever interlocking their fingers together. She would ask about it, but after everything that happened today, this could wait for another day. Izumi, Eri said as she looked up at the girl, causing Inko to smile. Why are the voices around you so focused on Achiko? They're really weird, she asked innocently. Izumi blushed deeply, having briefly forgotten that Eri could read her mind, and was both curious and usually remarked on things when someone's voices changed. You are, well, maybe, dating her, she said before she was interrupted by her mother crashing into her again and bringing both herself and Achiko into a hug. My baby! Inko cried, tears gushing out of her eyes. Oh, come on! Durandal said, sounding annoyed. We don't have enough towels for this. Izumi sighed as she accepted her fate. There was no way she was going to hide this from her mother, especially with Eri accidentally outing her. But she couldn't blame her. She was still trying to understand when to and not to say certain things, so she still had a way to go. But Izumi was happy, oh so very happy. She had won the sports festival, she had friends who supported her and helped her, and now, she had a girlfriend who she loved and who didn't punch her for having the gall to ask her out. She was happy. She knew she had a long way to go before she could become a proper hero. You can't become a hero overnight after all. But, with her friends and family to support her, she was ready to face any challenge she would have to face. Somewhere in Germany, a group of students wearing casual clothing were gathered around a TV, watching a recording of the UA Sports Festival, as due to time differences, they couldn't watch it live. Well, looks like UA's first years seem to be much more impressive this year, a large boy whose hair was styled like a tank, remarked in German. Looks like I was right about 1A dominating the competition this year, another boy with blonde hair and shaded goggles said. Most of the students from that class made it to the podium. They're ones to keep an eye out on, that's for sure. A lot of them were quite cute as well, a tall and curvaceous girl with long red hair, red eyes, a bust that was barely contained by her shirt, and a pair of leathery wings on her back and a tail, said seductively, especially that cute, adorable Yusako girl. She's quite the cute one, and shy looking as well. I hope we can meet her at the Expo this year. I'd just love to have a chat with her. Please don't do anything too lewd to her, a large and strong-looking girl with short brown hair, and who could be best described as built like a tank, said calmly. No promises, the girl with the wings replied with a sultry smile. I just love the cute and shy ones. They are so fun to tease. Don't make me get Zoran and make her subject you to another one of her mental training sessions, the built like a tank, the girl said with a frown. I just want TT to know www where she got that WW Wolf plush F from, a quiet girl with long, messy black hair stuttered. Her face was mostly hidden behind a rather large wolf plush she was holding. It's CCC cute. I'm more interested in those robots she and that May girl had, the boy with the goggles interjected. I've never heard of a shifter robot that can turn into a suit of armor before. You think that May girl made them?
She's going to have a lot of tech companies after her now, the student with the tank hair said, but she's not the only one. Yusako got first place and has a seriously strong quirk.
She ended the final round almost immediately. And that speech.
Even though she was stuttering throughout it, it was very inspiring.
What do you think about her, Blitzkrieg?
All eyes turned towards the tall young man sitting on the floor in a relaxed position, a grin on his face. He had yellow eyes and short amber hair. I think we shouldn't be making any predictions about her yet.
She's still a first year with very little training. It's better to wait until she's improved a bit.
We'll be able to get a better judge of her at the iExpo.
No doubt UA's winners will be invited there as well.
Besides, it'll be nice to meet with my cousin again, Harold Blitzen, aka Blitzkrieg, said with a smirk.
Yusako looked like an interesting girl with a very powerful quirk, almost like All Might. But he knew better than to make conspiracy theories with no real evidence to back them up. Whilst it was reasonable that All Might have gotten married to someone in secret to protect both them and their children, Yusako looked too normal to be the daughter of Japan's #1 hero, or even resemble the man in any way, shape, or form. Plus strength quirks like All Might's were a dime a dozen, so it was very unlikely that she was even related to the man. But she was strong, and if there was one thing he liked to do, was test his speed against those who were strong. He was, after all, the fastest man alive. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 35. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.